welcome back to another episode of One Man's Journey podcast. I'm super jacked today. I got Fritz Ball on here. He's a stud in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's a dad, he's a Marine Corps veteran, and currently operating as a realtor. And I'm just going to pass it off to him because I think he's got a lot to share, and I'm super excited to hear what he's got. So, Fritz, thanks for being on, and take it away.
Yeah, man, I greatly appreciate it, and thank you for having me on here. My my life story or journey, I guess, really starts kind of where I'm at right now. I grew up on a 1,000-acre dairy farm here in Grand Rapids, West Michigan. We're about 20-30 minutes outside of West Michigan, and a lot of, I think, where my core comes from here, right? I grew up here. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents on this farm, and my grandpa was in the Marine Corps as well, and he was very strict, very stern, kind of old school kind of guy, So when he said to do something, you just did it. You didn't ask questions. So you know, my that's where wanting to go in the Marine Corps really kind of came from in general. Was I wanted to do it, I guess, because he did it when I was young. And it just was something that I always wanted to do. But yeah, man, growing up here on the farm, I grew up racing dirt bikes. So I was a big sports guy growing up. I did football, baseball, and wrestling. But I quit all of that in ninth grade because they told me that I had to go to weightlifting on Saturdays in the summertime. And I said, well, I'm going to race my dirt bike. So they said, well, if you go race your dirt bike, you're not going to play. And I was like, well, then I guess I'm out because I'm going to race dirt bikes. So, um, you know, the combination of growing up on the farm and sports and racing motocross, I feel like is really really, fast forward to today, right? Gotten me where I'm at. I look at football and baseball as team sport, wrestling, individual sport, motocross, individual sport. So, if you don't have that self drive, self motivation, that desire to succeed as an individual, right? I mean, wrestling can be a team sport, right? But more individual, at least it was for me at that point in time. And it just, I've always, ever since I was little, I just remember I feel like I've always just had this, I want to win, right? And I want to succeed. I always want more. And I can't necessarily pinpoint exactly where that comes from. It's just, I think it's just my upbringing, So, um, grew up on the farm, dirt bikes, raced dirt bikes, graduated in 2008. So like the worst time to go into the job field like ever. And I chose construction. So I did construction out of high school, did that for 3 years. I did concrete construction. And then the company that I worked for, we come in and we would build the building and then we would finish the building. So we did the concrete and then we did all the finished carpentry. So we would build the cabinets, like we'd custom build all the cabinets, drill the trim, doors, hang the hardware, all that kind of stuff. So that was an interesting 3 years of my life. And then that led me to the Marine Corps. I was a UAV operator in the Marine Corps. So in order to be a UAV operator, a drone operator, pilot, as you might know them as, you had to go to pilot school to fly these planes, but you don't actually get to be in the plane, right? So I had to go get my FAA pilot's license in order to fly planes that I wasn't going to be sitting in. So that was fun. Spent about a year in Arizona for that, and then was in North Carolina for 4 years, just north of Jacksonville at Cherry Point Air Base, and did 2 deployments to Afghanistan with that. So was basically there for 6 months, gone for 7 months, back for 6 months, gone for 7 months, and then back for about a year and some change, and finally got out. So after that, I got into, well, when you're in the Marine Corps, they tell you like, oh, when you get out, like you should go to college and do something with your life, right? And at the time, I guess I just didn't know better, didn't realize that I never wanted to go to college in the first place, but that's just what everybody does. You get out of the Marine Corps, you get out of the military, you go to college because why not? It's free, right? They pay for it. So I signed up for a business administration classes with a focus in real estate because they have like different focuses, I guess. Um, so did that, got out, started my classes, got to my first college course or my first college class, like in the classroom. was like, yeah, no, this is not, this is not for me. Just because I spent the last 5 years in the military, I walk in the class, I sit down, and I remember this like very vividly, still to this day. This was 8 years ago. Sit down, like I'm early, right? 15 minutes early. The class starts, the professor's like introducing herself or whatever. And she starts rolling into stuff. And it's about 10 minutes into the class or whatever you call them in college. And this kid comes walking in the door. He's got like headphones on, like big ones. And he just walks right between the professor and the whiteboard. Like the professor's like, like this, doing her thing. He just walks right between the professor and the whiteboard, and then walks around, sits down in the back of the class. And I'm in the front of the class, because military, right? And I just was like, that just happened. Like what? Like going from, if that happened in the military, dude, like that kid would have got lit up, right? And I just was like, I had everything in me to not say something, because at that point in time it was just almost a natural reaction, right? Like bleh, like what are you doing? you know so yeah, literally like day one I knew right then and there, like this was just from that experience. I remember that very vividly, being like, yeah, this is not for me. So decided to basically skip the whole real estate degree thing, and signed up for the real estate class, took the class, passed the pre-licensing test, got my real estate license, and just started cranking out. So I stayed in the classes. So I finished the semester, got my real estate license, and then started doing real estate full tilt after that. As soon as I got my license, it was all real estate. So I went like Marine Corps, 2 semesters of college, real estate, and been doing real estate ever since January 4th, 2016. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're after diving right in, really, right? Like I graduated in '07. So when you made the '08 comment, like I fully understand, like that was awful, right?
Yeah. Yep.
My path was a little different, going to college first instead of trying to, do the workforce type thing. But I experienced that part of it, like when I came out,
Right.
of the trying to find the path of like, okay, what do I do now?
Right.
Um, if I look back, I probably had the same feelings about school as you did, and just like, honestly, I drank my way through it, so it made it very easy. But
Yeah.
that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I mean, so you mentioned like in the military, the regiment aspect of it. How do you think that lends to where you're at right now, and like being in real estate? How does that give you an edge over what you would think would not be, if you weren't coming from the military background?
Yeah, man. I mean, even coming from the workforce, right? Going from high school straight into, I mean, I literally did not skip a day, dude. Like my last day of high school was a Thursday. I might have, did something stupid on Friday and that weekend, and then I started working that Monday. Um, so, I spent 18, 19, 20 getting up and going to work every single day for a commercial construction company in the worst time there's ever to be in the construction industry, right? I was making $10 an hour with 3 days of vacation per year, right? Like I didn't have a choice to not go to work. Didn't have a choice to not get up and go. So by the time I got into the military, like to answer your question, it was just normal for me, right? To get up early and go to work. Or in boot camp, you get up and your work is boot camp, but it's not it's not work. It's just them. You're running around, them yelling at you, screaming at you, doing push-ups and jumping jacks and whatever. You do that for 3 months, but then yeah, after that, it was already normal for me. And I don't know, man. It's weird. I enjoy physical labor, honestly, more than I do sitting at the computer like this. If I could somehow do physical labor and not hurt myself and not like kill my back and my knees and my shoulders and everything, I'd probably still be doing physical labor. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a builder. I wanted to build houses. I knew that when I got out of the Marine Corps, though, that it just wasn't in the cards. After like 20 years of racing dirt bikes and the Marine Corps and everything else that I've already done to my body, it was like, okay, I knew that if I wasn't gonna, and this was prior to getting out, when I signed up for college, I'm like, okay, I could go be a builder, framer, whatever, right? I can go work for somebody, I can go frame houses, but that's not at that point in time, I was 24 years old. I was already thinking like, okay, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, I don't want to swing a hammer for the rest of my life. Right. So instead, I sit my butt in this chair and I do real estate. So um I think just the military helps with that because you just get into a routine of you just get up every day. And in the military we have this saying, it's called embrace the suck, or at least in the Marine Corps we do, right? So we all got to get up. There is no sick days in the Marine Corps, right? Like you don't get to call in like, hey, I don't feel like coming in today, right? It's not how it works. Like if you don't get up and you don't show up, like someone's come banging on your door and they're going to get you up and you're going to show up, right? So um, whether you're still drunk, hungover, don't feel like it, your girlfriend just broke up with you, like nobody cares. That's not the point, right? So um it was really just the way that it the way that it is and the way that it was. I just kind of carried that over to everyday life. Um, I knew the time when I got out and the time I was in school and the time that I wasn't doing real estate, like in that in between period, um, I still got up every day and like I worked on school like it was my job, like it was work, because that was basically my job at that point. Right. And I wanted to do good. I wanted to have good grades and all that stuff. So it just, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things that once you become a morning person, like you actually start to enjoy it. I used to stay up late and then like sleep in. Now I'm like, I'm in bed at 8:30, sleeping by 9, and I'm up at 4 or 5 in the morning every single day. I love it. So
Yeah, that's a change that a lot of people, like, they fight back on, right? Like, even from, when the time we're kids, right? We think our parents are partying after we go to bed, and like, but now I look back and I'm like, damn, like I should have just learned to do that and just done that my whole life, and we'd be in a different scenario, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Um, Kind of rolling off of that, you mentioned that your grandpa was kind of like that military person for you growing up. Do you find yourself in being a dad, and I'm gonna put you on the spot here, so hopefully you can bounce
You're
off
good.
it.
Yeah.
Uh, if you do you find yourself in being a dad pushing those ideals along, or do you find yourself looking back and going, "Do I need to break some generational aspects of this, and what do I really wanna pass on to my children?"
Yeah, man. It's before you have kids, you're like, oh, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this, right? Like my kids are never gonna be like that. And then once you have kids, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now, right? um, but I mean, some things I'm definitely like pretty stern on still, and try to be anyways. With I have a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old, so there's only they
Yeah,
only
not
listen
not
so
much
much.
discipline aspect there for sure,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But I mean, we try, and there's just little things that I learned from like, Instagram reels and stuff, honestly, like um Anna sent me something the other day that it's like such a good idea, but you don't think of these things until you hear someone else say them, right? So we have 2 kids. We make dinner almost every single night. Um every other night, right? But then, you make dinner and you got, with kids, little ones, you got dinner, bath, bed, right? Like that's every night. But she sent me this thing. It was like, we take turns cleaning up after dinner. So at least one parent is fully engaged with the kids while the other parent is doing the dishes, cleaning the kitchen, whatever. Where normally we're both like trying to do all the cleaning and picking up and whatever and entertaining the kids at the same time. And it was like, damn, that's fucking good, right? Like that, like shit, that makes so much sense. Um, but no, there's definitely some stuff that try to be pretty stern on, like with television and stuff like that, screen time. We didn't have this stuff when we were kids. We had the TV, but that was it. So, um, I hope that I can instill being a hard worker into my kids, and at the same time, I don't think I'm going to be like, hey, you got to do physical labor to be successful in life, right? Like you don't need to be a farmer, right? You would think that with 1,000 acres, we could live off this land, but it's just too small. 1,000 acres is not a lot of land. You know, when I was a kid, we had 1,000 acres. It's all either corn or beans every year, and we had 300 head of dairy cow. And my grandpa and his brother, they lived off that until about early 2000s, and then it just got to a point where it didn't make sense anymore. So, um, yeah, I'd like to think that I'm gonna be, you know, kind of strict and stern and whatever, but I catch myself all the time. Like we're going through town or we going to Meyer or whatever, and like I want a toy. It's like, oh yeah, let's go get a toy, buddy. You know, so I'm gonna have to cut that off here pretty soon because he's gonna
I think there's
he's
some
gonna
value in
catch
that.
on to that.
No,
Yeah,
I think there's some value in that too, right? Like you've got to, you know, and I don't have kids, so I get to speak from the perspective of that side, right? And really, it's just me speaking from childhood experience, right? It's looking back and going, well, what would have been a different way, or even just something that did happen, and really like you want to, you know, and I think what you've said is you want to teach your kid that the value of hard work and that there's a reward on the other side, right? And
right,
so
right, yep,
if you're able to, you know, to create that reward system, I think that's an extremely strong method of way of doing it. You know, you don't have to really back off of anything if you're creating them knowing that like they've worked for it.
yeah,
And at the same time, you got to go, you know, like you said, with the hard work part, like I'm at the point now where, you know, just like you sit behind a computer and we work, right? And we look at like, you know, I thoroughly enjoy the hard work portion too. So like we've got a couple other houses that we own. And so when we go over to those houses and we've got to do some of that work, like that's some of the most rewarding time in my days, right? Is when I get to just like shut the world off and just like go to town and like fix something, right? Like you get to be
hmm
the stereotypical dude that fixes
yeah,
stuff. And it's
or
just a lot of
destroy
fun.
stuff.
Yeah, or knocks it down.
Yeah,
But, you know, and that's I think that there, you know, if you can teach that as a way of understanding of the world is like the hard work can be rewarding without it having to be how you make your money, right? Like don't teach them to take the trash out and pay them a buck because then they're gonna be like that's what they think is the way to earn money kind of thing.
dude. Yeah, I mean that right there, like you hit the nail on the head on that, right? Like I talk to other parents who their kids are older, which you know my kids aren't old enough yet to be doing chores and stuff, but we talk about that chores with kids, right? And I had chores all growing up, you know, my with my mom, and um, it was just something that had to be done. It was non-negotiable, or you weren't. I guess there was a little bit of leverage with that, like it had to be done, otherwise we weren't going to be able to go do whatever it was that we wanted to go do, right? And it had to be done by Friday. Like Friday, like before you went and did anything, your all of our chores had to be done. We had the whole week to do them. Didn't matter what it was, you know, when you did it, but it had to be done right that week. And there was no there was no like allowance or spending money or anything. My mom gave us food for lunch money, and this was before, you know, you probably do it all online now. I don't even know, but she would give us $20 for the week. And if we took that $20 and we went to school and we put it in our account for lunch or not, that was up to us. So when I got older and she was giving me $20 for lunch, I'm sticking it in my pocket. I would skip lunch. I just wouldn't eat. So, you know, that was like my allowance. But yeah, man, we had chores all growing up. I mean, especially like being around here on the farm, like there was just work that needed to be done that it was just expected of you to do, right? And you know, it wasn't even chores. It was just like, hey, we got to go do this, right? And the chores around the house, that's one thing that I feel like I see a lot of parents are just not doing. You know, like 2 days ago, all of a sudden out of nowhere, my 2-year-old's like, I'm doing the dishes real quick, and after dinner, and he's like, I wash dishes. I wash dishes. I'm like, heck yeah, buddy. Here's a
Come on
chair,
up.
dude. Let's go.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. You know, and one of the things that, you know, you mentioned Instagram Reels and stuff, and like there's it's such an influence on life now because you can get snippets that change the way you think just, you know, in 60 seconds or less, right?
mhm.
Like just
Yeah,
something that comes up and you're just like that
yeah,
clicked in, just like you mentioned the other one. One of the ones that
dude.
I've seen is, you know, paying them to read books kind of thing. So you're gathering like they're gathering knowledge
Yeah,
instead of paying them for the work, you know, you're teaching them that like knowledge creates money and creates
right, right.
that
Yeah,
flow of money.
no,
And so
yeah,
that's like something that, you know, and again, I don't have children, but that's one thing that like for me at this point would be non-negotiable in raising kids is like, that's how I want to do it. Right. Like
Right.
I want this to be your power instead of like always having to deal, you know, you're going to be physically strong too, but like that doesn't have to be what represents you. Right. Like
Right.
your mental strength can enter the room before you do. Whereas your
Oh,
physical strength, like you have
yeah.
to bring that with you wherever you go. So,
Yeah.
you know,
No,
that's
I
one
love
thing that
that.
I've learned for quite a while is just like being able to like represent myself with like stuff like this, like being able to get on camera and show that enters the room before you do. Because people now, as soon as they hear your name, you get Googled, right? Like that's the first thing
Or
that happens.
Facebook. Yeah. Facebook,
Yeah, like
Instagram. If they can't find you on Facebook, they're going to Instagram. So
right. Yeah. And so they
yeah.
look you up and so that like your representation of your intelligence and of your knowledge of life like can enter the room before and people are going to respect that, you know. And you know there's the respect of the physical side too, but that has to just a different approach. But
Yeah.
that's one thing that's super heavy on my
Yeah.
mind.
I mean, I've been my whole, I wouldn't say necessarily my whole life, but like the whole time that I've been, I guess what I would call self-employed or an entrepreneur or in real estate, from the very beginning, it was always like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to get in the room where the people that are doing the deals and just learn from them. Right. And, there was there's classes that I would take repeatedly because they're like the same class, but they'd be taught by a different person. Or it was like a year later, it's the same person teaching the same class, but I still go to it because that person might say one thing, like you said, that just like, oh, that clicked that time. Right. Like how many times have you heard somebody say, I was thinking about this earlier today. How many times you heard somebody say like the people who you surround yourself with makes a huge difference in your life, right? Like how many times you heard that one? But you don't realize it until you realize who you are. Like if you're surrounding yourself with shit people or good people and people who are driven and moving forward, or if you're surrounded by people who are just stagnant doing nothing.
Yeah, I made a video, just a short TikTok about similar what you're saying, like where I think the quote I used in the video was, you know, if you're surrounding yourself with 9 losers, you'll soon be the 10th loser, right? But I think the
100%.
struggle and a personal struggle of mine, and that's why I think that it applies outwardly, because I know I'm not the only one, right? Uh, the personal struggle I've had with that is when you are feeling like a loser, like how do you say, we always say like surround yourself with better people. Well, those better people don't want to be surrounded by people that aren't better than them or as good as them. And so fighting to get in those rooms, I found the way that I've been able to do it is instead of surrounding myself, and that was, you know, in the past. Now I'm like, I'll walk into any room. I don't give a crap. Like you're going to see me if I want to be in the room. But
Right.
in the past, when I was going through, you know, the drinking issues and stuff like that, it was really to pull myself out was like, get involved with people that aren't even alive anymore. YouTube, YouTube videos, shorts on, you know, now it's shorts and TikToks and like Jordan Peterson and reading books and like getting yourself like you're in the room with them when you're reading their stuff, right? You're
Hmm.
learning from them
Yeah.
and they're not even there physically, but they're there in the book. And so like
Yep.
that was my way of pulling myself into
Yeah.
those rooms because
Yeah.
you can't always just say like I want to be hanging out with that guy and then go latch onto his hip and follow him around. He's gonna go like, what the
Right.
hell are you
Right.
doing, dude? You know,
Yeah.
so being able to create that for yourself is super important in the beginning, I think.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately for me, I'm a big like I just get me present, like face to face, one on one, have a conversation with people. That's where stuff really resonates with me. I can, sit in a class like this in a computer and like be in a Zoom training or whatever. And for me personally, it's just not the same. So early on in my career, fortunately, I was able to like go to some big conferences and stuff and get around these people who are doing a ton of volume, a ton of sales, a ton of business, and really see, the possibilities, right, of what this industry can look like if you actually really try hard and put forth the effort. And I was able to go to my first one kind of early on in my career, and it just really opened my eyes. Like, okay, there are real people, and they're real people, right? Like, same thing with like famous people, actors, sports people, whatever. Like, until you get around just one of them, you get around one person who you think is like a big deal, and you think there's something special, and you get around them, you meet them, you talk to them. They're just a regular person, right? But you don't realize that till that actually happens. So for me, continuing, right, to get in those rooms and go to those conferences, go to those meetings, even local stuff, right? Like for me being in real estate, there's always local trainings going on around town. I'm going to one tomorrow. I always try to go to that stuff because there's always bigger producers there who are doing way more than me. And that's a basically free and easy way for me to get in the room with those people and have conversations with them and try to get them to tell me what they're doing. Right. Like that's my number one goal is whenever I walk in those rooms and those trainings, I'm trying to find the people who are like the big top producers doing the most production, most volume, even if it's just a, hey, what's up real quick, because you never know where that relationship's going to lead to. Right. Like I want to do my own podcast someday. So worst comes to worst, at least I have that friendly relationship with those people where then I can get them onto my own podcast. Right. And we can have the same conversation that you and I are having right now. So, yeah, just getting in the room, you can be around those people so many times. And then again, just like one of those people will say one thing and you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like recently for me, like you're talking about, feeling like a loser and self-doubt and whatever, I've realized that my average price point for sales is really not where I would like it to be. Right. So again, going back to you're the average of who you're surrounding yourself with. Well, my core database, I guess, is people who, they're in that great people, like, don't don't hate the people by any means or anything like that. But in order to survive in this business where I'm at, like these people are, looking to buy $200,000 houses and they just don't exist. So it's like, okay, if I continue to surround myself with people who can only afford $200,000 houses, I'm going to be out of business. Right. So there's a guy in our real estate group who he sells $1 million houses left and right. And all he does is make YouTube videos with his iPhone. Right. And he does home tours with his iPhone. And I'm like, well, if I keep putting out $250,000, $300,000 houses, like content around those houses, those are probably the houses that I'm going to sell. But you get around this guy who's doing the $1 million houses and you realize he's just another guy. He's a dad too. He's got 2 kids, just had his 3rd one, right? He's just a guy and just a dad who makes iPhone videos and posts them on YouTube. It's just another dude.
Yeah.
So if I start
really
posting $1 million houses for sale and posting $1 million YouTube videos and whatever, like those, now I'm a luxury guy just because I made $1 million videos.
Yeah. Yeah. You can create. Now, when I said the word create, it kind of jumped in my head here. But the quote that I remember specifically is there's a lot of people out there trying to find themselves. Be the one that goes out and creates themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So like look in the mirror and go, who do I want to be? And just go be that person. And we're going to struggle with that. Right. Like I'm in a point of like, I feel like every single day I'm challenging myself. And then I'll get in a stupid fucking argument with my wife over absolutely nothing. And it'll turn into this big thing. And I'm sleeping on the couch. And I'm going, what the fuck am I doing? Right. Like it's just so stupid.
Yeah.
But going back to the room thing, there was another quote I heard was talking about, the more rooms I'm in, the more rooms the more I realize I need to be in more rooms. And it's like
man,
that,
for real.
that's what you were saying throughout that whole thing. And it's interesting because once you get yourself into that position, and I'm saying this from personal experience with the last conference I went to in Vegas, it was at AIM Fuse. So it's like the biggest mortgage broker conference in the country. And it like, we had some pretty awesome access with my boss was there. So we had the VIP access kind of thing, but it was really interesting because I'm looking back in the weekend, I'm going, man, I didn't meet really anybody from our side of the stage. I was hanging around with everybody that was on stage. Like I was just like walking up to these people and introducing myself and being like, hey, how's it going? I'm right. And like, I did it without even knowing I was doing it because I knew that like subconsciously my brain was going, just get with those people. Cause those are the people you need to be talking to. There was a real estate agent I met, Jeff Glover. I'm sure you've heard his name. He owns Glover U.
Yep.
I was shaking hands with a guy that did $1.2 billion in 2022 with his team. Like that. And it was automatic. Like it was just walking up and talking to the guy. And like you said, he's a normal dude. He's going to be on the podcast. I'm like, you want to be on? He's like, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So it's just, like you said, like we build these people up and we create celebrities and sometimes they're just normal people doing what they thought was right at the time. And a lot of it becomes, right place, right time at certain things, but then they put in the work behind that too. And so, if we're able to get just a mindset of the possibility thing, you triggered that with me as well. Like, when you're feeling like a loser, you don't see those opportunities. You don't see the possibility of growth, right? You see like, oh, my life is shit. And so when you get in a room with somebody that is just like you, and they're doing quadruple what you're doing, you're going, oh, it is possible. Okay. So like, how do I get there?
Yeah. 100%, man. I mean, I think I've realized this too over the last couple of years and I keep seeing this pop up on Facebook and Instagram and whatever, is this quote. It's like, um, just because you worked 15 hours today doesn't mean that you like worked hard or whatever. And I'm like, I'm got my Google Calendar now and I'm time blocking and everything, right? This has been going on for a while, but the first 5-6 years in my business, I was just kind of, whoa. And I thought, if I worked 16 hours a day, then that was me working. That was hard work. Well, it was really just me doing just unnecessary things throughout a way longer time period that could have been, condensed to a shorter time period and got the task done quicker. Um,
Or
so for
delegated it.
me, yeah. So for me with that is, a lot of these people, they're super successful because, or they've gotten to the point where they're at because they were smart enough to get to like a point where I'm at right now and realize like, okay, I do need to hire help, right? I do need to leverage these things off, because if you keep trying to do it yourself, you're just going to keep spinning. You're going to get nowhere. And then it's all going to just fall apart.
Yeah. One thing I saw recently based on that line is like, set an hourly wage that you want to make, and then any task that's not worth that,
Mm-hmm.
pass it off or get
Yeah.
rid of it. And there's
Yeah.
so many, like, we could go on for days about AI and VAs and all that stuff, right? But
Yep.
that there's so many affordable options out there right now. My next move in that regard is like the video production, because I know that there's like, I'm like right at that level. Like I could sit there and spend the next week and a half figuring it out and getting to that level and then spending all that time doing it. But I'm like, okay, I know people that are using VAs at a high level to do this mixed with AI. So like that's what I've been doing for a week, is just like looking through all of the AI editors. And like that's
Yeah.
what I'm going to do with this one. We're going to put it in
Mm-hmm.
Opus Clip. It's going to create 10 amazing things, and I'm going to post those 10 most viral
Yeah, man.
clips, and that's what's going to
Yep.
show up. So
Yeah, man.
there's so many
100%.
ways to get around that.
Yeah, dude. Opus Clip is sweet. It's like,
Especially
it's,
for stuff like this. It's amazing.
oh, dude. Yeah. I threw some stuff in there last week and it spit it out. And I'm like, damn, dude, this is better than if I even like, cause I like to create. I'm a creator, right? That's like, I want to be a builder. When I grew up, I like to work with my hands. I like to build things. Like you were saying, you go into a house, you do something, you see the end result. I like to show up somewhere with nothing and then, build the end result, right? Or turn something into something, or like, finish a basement or whatever. Like that's the kind of stuff that I like to do. So I like taking clips and editing them and making them into a finished product and making them, flashy and here and there and whatever. But even with the little bit of skills that I do have, like I can't even make it look as good as Opus Clip, and I'm
Right.
like, damn. So yeah, Opus is dope. So I like it a lot. I'm really starting to dive into the AI stuff. Virtual assistants are huge. A lot of people are using them. It's just cheap and
Yeah.
easy. And dude, they're people treat VAs like they're some sort of robot a lot of times, like they're not human. Like you can just put all these tasks off on them and not like treat them well, but they're real people too.
Yeah, they become part of your team. I mean,
Oh,
if you do it the
100%.
right way, they're an invaluable part of your team, right? Because you're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
more value, way more
Yeah.
value out than what you're
Mhm.
paying in the long
Oh,
run.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's why you
When
look at it. But
Yeah, and you can teach them to do anything, or they're willing to learn anything. Like
yeah,
if you can hire them and say, "Hey, all I want you to do is edit videos for me. I want you to watch this video, take this course, whatever, learn it, master it," and that's what they'll do.
yeah.
They don't care. They'll do whatever you want them to do. So,
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, we could go on for days about that, but
yeah.
like the core idea there is like anything that is below the level you want to make, then let's get that off of our plates for sure. I appreciate your time today, Fritz. I know you got to run shortly here. You are officially Fritz the Creator Ball, and so that's what I'm going to be calling you from now on, and that's what the title of the episode will probably be. But I appreciate you being on here and spending
Yeah,
some
man.
time with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, we will see you on the next episode of One Man's Journey. And thanks again, Fritz. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.